very good afternoon to all. I'm Ms. Anusya Mahanta on behalf of Indian Institute of Entrepreneurship and the NERES team. Welcome you all to this webinar on social entrepreneurship today. This webinar is as a part of NERES 1.0 Summit organized by IIE and FINER in association with Impulse Social Enterprises, Ashoka Innovators for the Public, and Facebook. I, on behalf of IIE, extend my thanks to Ms. Hasina Kharbi of Impulse Social Enterprises for making this webinar happen today and getting all the eminent speakers on board with us today for this session. So I welcome you all once again. And on behalf of IIE, Preeti Sharma has been coordinating this webinar for today. So I also extend our thanks to her. And now, before we start this webinar, I would like to request our director, Sir Dr. Abhijit Sharma, sir, to give the opening address. Sir, please.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our social entrepreneurship. Indian Institute of Entrepreneurship is an autonomous body under the Government of India who's been working from 1994 in the area of entrepreneurship, particularly with the micro, small, and medium segment. And we have been doing trainings, consultancy, projects, or research, policy, etc. in this area. This is a new initiative that we have started. It's called NERES. This webinar is part of that, as Anusya has mentioned. NERES is Northeast Region Entrepreneurship and Startup Summit. The idea who wants to start up business or get their ideas into a commercial entity. So NERES has been a plan that we have. We means IIE, the industry body called FINER, Federation of India Northeast Region, and NECS sponsored it. So it is under this aegis that we are having this webinar today. The idea was that we would have this seminar or this talk as part of a 2-day summit, which was physically to be held at a time when through the different pitches that these entrepreneurs would have taken, and finally we would have come down to 20 number of entrepreneurs whom we would have awarded 5 lakh each. That was a time when we were thinking of a summit, and then that's where we had actually tied up with Hasina, and I would like to thank Hasina immensely for this tie-up. It's been really, I has really benefited through this tie-up. So it is where Hasina came in and said that, especially from some segment, this, and then there was others where they said that we could bring in people, and thanks to her today, we have for this seminar particularly Impulse Social Enterprises who's involved, Ashoka Innovators, thanks Hasina for bringing them in. They are the pioneers who have been involved with social enterprise and entrepreneurship in India. And of course, I'd like to also thank NEC for sponsoring this entire event. We have with us a galaxy of eminent speakers. I know some of them personally, and I would just like to welcome them personally before we set the ball rolling. I would like to welcome Bablu, an Ashoka Fellow, but more known for his human rights, intensely passionate man related to human rights in the region. And I thank you, Bablu, for being with us today and taking some time out and speaking with this young group of entrepreneurs who are there, who want to also take, I would say, new paths in the region. So thank you, Bablu, for being here. I would like to thank Nichite, another friend of mine in Nagaland, who have been, like I say, one of the pioneers in social entrepreneurship in the region, done many, many new things. So Nichite, thank you for being part of this initiative today and at least inspiring some of these young guys who want to blaze new trails. Thank you, Nichite.
Thank you.
And we have also Yasveer Singh from Ashoka and from Bangalore. We know that, entrepreneurship is in and around from Bangalore. That's where the innovations take place, really. So thanks, SBN, and particularly for Ashoka fellows who have been trying to make changes in challenging places like Northeast. So thank you very much, SB, for being with us. I'm not very sure whether Miguel has joined us. Has Miguel joined us? Okay, I think maybe Miguel will. Colin also probably has not joined us. I'm not very sure whether Colin has joined us. So anyway, I would like to also thank Colin. I think well-known person, a lawyer who has been working in human rights. We always see him in the TV taking the opposition stand. And then, of course, we have Amarin from Impulse. Hasina, thank you both. You have been not just been speakers, you have been really one of the, you have been, the partnership has been great. So I think thank you again for not just for this particular program, but also for the others. And then, of course, we have Manuram, a person, a social entrepreneur who has taken to a mission of making people get back into rice, as most of us has got into wheat eating. So I think, thank you, Manuram. I think all of you. So I would like to thank all of you for being part of this today's initiative. I'm sure this discussion, and then I begin, of course, with the last one, but actually the person who will really take the program forward, Madan Padaki, who's the moderator here. A small introduction for others. He's a well-known person. He's a founder of GAIN, Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship. He works at the intersection of youth, enabling entrepreneurial journeys, and empowering social change. His vision is that youth is empowered and becomes an entrepreneur and then creates jobs. He was earlier working, but sometime in 2000, he co-founded Merit Track. He pioneered the idea of skill assessment. He's a co-founder of Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship. It's a network which aims to catalyze large-scale job creation by bringing to government, businesses, civil society, working collaboratively, and igniting what we call as mass entrepreneurship movement. In fact, thank you, sir, for being here. I think collaboration is the need of the hour. Social entrepreneurship believes in that. It's only through participation that we can make changes. So thanks again for all of us, for all of you coming here today. And I hand over now to Madan Padaki to take it forward from here. Thank you again for everyone. And I'm sure we'll have a wonderful discussion ahead. I look forward to it. Madan, please.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Thanks a lot for setting the context and for the warm welcome. It's a pleasure to be here amidst some very fine minds and hearts in the social entrepreneurship space. And I really look forward to learning from this conversation over the next hour and a half that we have. When I moved out selling my previous venture, Meritrack, to Manipal, and I said I'm going to work with youth, especially the underprivileged rural youth, and help them to figure out a way in which they can become more confident and chart their own destinies. A lot of people ask me, so you're now moving on to the other side. You're becoming an entrepreneur. From an entrepreneur, you're becoming a social entrepreneur. And one question that I kept getting asked for a year was, what is the difference that you see? What is the difference between an entrepreneur and a social entrepreneur? And I struggled with that question for more than a year. I was trying to figure out what is the difference, right? And then, of course, I formed my own views. But when this topic came up, I said, hey, it will be wonderful to hear this perspective from a bunch of people who've been doing this for a much, much longer time. And to really, to focus this conversation at the intersection of four circles. One is, of course, the impact, and we're going to focus largely on livelihoods, or social entrepreneurship for impact, especially in the livelihood space. We realize that in India, of course, we are living through some horrid times now, but despite that, and I'm sure we will overcome, but livelihoods and job creation seems to be the single largest challenge that we as a country face, with more than 150 million youth entering the workforce over the next 10, 15 years. So there is one circle of livelihoods. There is, of course, another circle of youth. which is like 25% of our population, but 100% of our future, as we like to say in UNICEF. The third circle is on entrepreneurship, and how do entrepreneurs create more livelihoods for youth? And the fourth critical circle is social, that how do we operate from the principles of social entrepreneurship and what those principles look like. So the next hour and a half we'll be looking at intersections of these circles, creation of livelihoods, which impacts youth and helps to create better pathways for them through an entrepreneurial model, but with a social objective, with the heart of a social entrepreneur in that sense. And we'll unravel some of these questions for now and for the future as we go along. The format that we have is that we will start off with opening comments by each of the panelists. We have a fairly heavy and a heavy duty panel. We have 9 panelists, including 2 young colleagues who joined us as well. So I will request each one of the panelists to share your background. I know it can, each one of you can themselves speak for an hour or so or more on each of your experiences, but if you can keep it within a minute and a half. And also end that piece by sharing your perspective on why do you think you're a social entrepreneur? What makes you believe that that you're a social entrepreneur, which will obviously shed light on the definition of social entrepreneur. Amongst the panel, I would request the audience to put in your questions in the chat box, and at the end of an hour, I will curate these questions, place it in front of the panelists, and we'll have a conversation. I'm sure the panelists can also respond to some of the questions in the chat box itself if you feel called to. So with that, let's kick it off. Why don't I invite Hasina to set the ball rolling?
Thank you, Madan. I think I would like to just mention that being in the space of social entrepreneurship for the last 30 years and starting young at 17, the journey of what I really saw as a young person, at the same time becoming an Ashoka Fellow way back, I mean, almost 12 years now, led me to dive deep. So I think the word of a social entrepreneur is social impact is very important. Diving deep is very, very essential. And that is what Impulse NGO Network and Impulse Social Enterprise has gone to take the social entrepreneurship journey, not just from me as a founder, but at the same time, each and every one of us in the organization, that we are there to make social impact. Social business has to have a social impact, and profit cannot be defined by the money that you earn at the end of the year as a social enterprise, but by the impact and the change that you bring. So that is what social entrepreneurship is for me. But I think the value and principle that Ashoka Fellowship has helped me is system change is a very important element. The role of collective leadership in the process and the partnership that engages to define how a social entrepreneur would normally take an issue forward and would not rest till he or she find a solution for it. That's what social entrepreneurship is for me. And that's what Impulse Social Enterprise stand on those principles when we talk about building livelihood for women at the grassroots.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot. I totally resonate to the systems change definition that you talked about, Hasina. Maybe with that, can I bring in Dr. Sriparna Barua to share her thoughts on this for a few minutes?
Very good afternoon. First, I would like to say that, why I feel social entrepreneurship is so important and what is my idea about who a social entrepreneur is. Having been in this space for more than 30 years now, as my work experience in the entrepreneurship domain for about almost more than 20 years now. So my experience, having worked with entrepreneurs at the grassroots, at the micro level, at the startup level, what we find, and my experience entirely relates to the region, that is the Northeastern region. As we are all aware, in Northeast, when we talk about industries, we don't have big industries except for oil, public sector industry, etc. More than 70% are at the rural areas. And when we look at rural enterprises, they are basically very, very small, either in the SHG mode or the micro enterprise, model enterprise level. As my what I'm talking is that when we have been as an institute trying to promote these micro entrepreneurs, household enterprises, we, the approach, because when you have to take them up, the approach that we've been following is the cluster approach. Now, when we did the cluster approach, which is supposed to be a holistic approach for enterprise promotion, we believed, and that is what because these are the policy perspectives that we follow from the government, that how a cluster should be promoted. We found that we need to empower people at the grassroots, and then exit from the cluster so that they become self-sustaining and they understand the market and they start growing. But most of the interventions that we've been doing is for a period of 2 years, 2.5 years, and then we exit. Now, what happens then is, however much you try to empower people at the grassroots level, with 2 years, 2.5 years is not enough for them to actually understand market and then scale up. So what happens is, while the people at the grassroots level start understanding the nuances of understanding the sense of, gets a sense of commercialization, understands the market, but they are not being able to understand the demand. They continuously need to innovate, they have to understand the market, so they get exploited to a large extent by entrepreneurs who see them as supply chain providers. So they look at them as supply chain, and it's like a very fragmented. People from Guwahati, maybe we look at small clusters which are around. People from Guwahati understand that there are people who are got a sense of commercialization, they're at the grassroots, but they get just maybe something they're procuring from 1.5 hours from Guwahati, and they're selling it more than double the price. So this has been happening. So that is where we thought that while we keep empowering people, there's also a need for to connect entrepreneurs to these grassroots levels, so that entrepreneurs are the people who will understand the market, who will continuously know where to innovate, etc., and give them the market feedback, and these people can start supplying to the entrepreneur. Now, a lot depends on who the entrepreneur is. Entrepreneur definitely has to be a social entrepreneur, where the idea is that I grow as well as you also grow, and so a fair price. An objective that I get a sense of satisfaction by also empowering people at the grassroots is my understanding of a social entrepreneur.
Thank you so much. It's all about the connections that you make and the way in which you make the connections that will bring the social entrepreneur alive. With that, can we go to Colin? Is Colin there? Okay, Colin seems to have stepped off. Maybe we'll come back to Colin. Nichute, can I bring you in at this point of time?
Sure. So, good afternoon,
Yes.
friends. My name is Nichute Julo, and I'm based in Kohima. And I want to thank for this opportunity to share about social entrepreneurship. To me, if anyone can identify a problem and provide a solution to the problem with a social goal or social good or social profit, that is what I call social entrepreneurship. And therefore, for every problem that one might see, we will also see a solution. And that solution, when we decide to act upon it, at times, people may laugh at that crazy idea, but we must act. If we believe that we can bring a solution to our social issues, I want to encourage young people who are here to go for it. We must believe in ourselves and act upon it. I like the principle of Christian religion, where it says, do unto others what you would want them to do to you. This is proactive social principle. I started out as a young person. When I was 19 years old, I started selling newspapers in the streets of Kohima and did porter jobs in the streets of Kohima, because our young people were not willing to take up manual works, and we needed to demonstrate what we call dignity of labor. When we started out the Entrepreneurs Associate, for which I became an Ashoka Fellow in the year 2001. At that time, people did not know what is entrepreneurship. Every youth, every graduate wanted to get a government job. And the banks were not willing to work with Naga local youth because they think that these tribals are risky element for banking business. So we created a pool of microfinance because banks were not willing to lend to us. We trained young people on entrepreneurship because our people didn't know how to start a business. Our experience with modern economy and especially with market economy was of very recent experience. And so our young people didn't know how to do business. People like us, armed with strict selling, experiences, we began to share our experiences, and that's how Entrepreneurs Associate was formed. Today, we have our own small NBFC. We provide micro enterprise loans. We work with banks for on lending. We work with SFGs, and we don't have FCRA, which means we don't get foreign fundings. So we are self-sustaining. We have 96 staffs working on the vision of promoting entrepreneurship and sustainable livelihood. To me, this is social entrepreneurship. So if we know where to provide a solution for our society, that's where social entrepreneurship can begin. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I love the do unto others quote. I think if that kind of is the founding principle, I might add to the social entrepreneurship movement. Thank you so much. Colin is back. Colin, can we have you share your perspectives? If you can unmute yourself, please. Okay.
Yeah, it's very nice to be back after a very, very long time. I was the batch with Javed Abidi and others, so you can imagine how long back that was. And I've always been very inspired by the stories of my colleagues who became Ashoka Fellows. I became an Ashoka Fellow at a time when I was really struggling in Delhi to get into law and make my mark in law and so on. And Ashoka's help and support came at a very important time in my life in Delhi. And I look around and I know so many of you here, and I just listened to my friend from Nagaland talking about. I remember when he started, he was really at the beginning of his path and career and so on. Well, entrepreneurship means many things, but I want to emphasize one thing. I want to emphasize, as you know this well, I want to emphasize the extremist part of entrepreneurship. It has many shades, it has many colors, it has many things. It's a marvelous mixture of things. Not any one of them is higher than the other or better than the other. And all together, all this entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship taken together takes society forward bit by bit. And this incremental approach is very important. You know, you may have grand ideas of we'll do revolution and we'll do this and we'll do that. And I do hope we do revolution. But even the incremental parts and the small contributions, the steady contributions, changes society enormously. So social entrepreneurs are like bubbles on the seashore, coming in a rush all together. And neither one is bigger than the other or better than the other, but this is how social change is brought about by millions of people pushing slowly to make society a better place. I only want to say this, that we must look sometimes at the extreme part, which is that sometimes it's not possible really to change society by incremental measures. So one approach is incremental, bit by bit, which is very, very important. And the other approach is when society becomes so cruel as society is today. If you look at it today and you see COVID and you saw the migrant workers walking and the government ignoring them, not having food, and things like that, one must look at how does one drastically change society. So that aspect of social entrepreneurship, where you say, listen, I'm pushing, I'm pleading, I'm begging government to do something, I'm requesting them, I'm sending them, representations, I'm doing hunger fasts, and nothing happens. So you look at something more, where you really fight with the government. I don't say outside the ambit of law, inside the ambit of law, but you struggle and fight against government is an important aspect of social entrepreneurship. I use the law, other people use media, other people use struggle, and so on. But doing the little bit extra, that fight to the finish, so to speak, is also a very important aspect of social entrepreneurship. That's all.
Wow. Thanks a lot, Colin. I think that was you covered the ends of the spectrum so beautifully. As you said, bubbles on a seashore. I was remembering another analogy that a dear friend of mine, Arun Maira, who's a lovely author and a lovely human being, uses for social entrepreneurs. He says we are all like fireflies rising, right? And that's what is required for us to make a difference, to bring light into the world. Is that we must each be like a firefly and we must rise together. You so vividly told the bubbles on our seashore is a beautiful one as well. Thank you. Can I then move to Bablu? Bablu, can we bring you in now?
Oh, Madan, thank you very much. It's a good flow from Colin, because I remember in 2000 when I was getting inducted into Ashoka, he was my second opinion reviewer. And as we sat and discussed things, I remember quite vividly in IIC, instead of wasting time, we started planning. Instead of going through instead of reading me as my personality, we started planning what we are going to do with the People's Commission of Inquiry on the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. And that was how we started. That was how I started my Ashoka journey. And very unfortunately, today is the day the judge that Colin brought to do that People's Commission of Inquiry on the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, he expired yesterday. So it's a very moving day for me. I'm sure it must have touched Colin greatly. He was the chair of his trust for a very long time. To me, the basic difference between an entrepreneur and a social entrepreneur is that the entrepreneur, of course, creates wealth, whereas the social entrepreneur creates the social good. That is what made a difference between, someone once said, the richness of a man is measured by the amount he can gather for himself or for his company or for his whatever corporate. But the greatness of a man is measured by how much you can give out, how much you can contribute to the world. And that is, to me, the difference between an ordinary entrepreneur and a social entrepreneur. Social entrepreneur gives out, not just wealth, but ideas and social changes. And again, if I have to compare it between a normal social worker and a social entrepreneur, the basic difference is that the normal social worker tries to do things good. Whereas the social entrepreneur looks at the system. To quote Hasina's term, you dive deep. You try to understand where are the leverage of changes. And you try to bring about those changes so that the ecosystem changes. It's not just one problem, because one problem is the product of many other factors around that. So you have to focus on the ecosystem. I have been working on documenting human rights for the last 25 years by now, and trying to use excess justice. And to that, Colin has been a great help. We have done work wonders in collaboration with Colin, but we also try to look at not just at the law. The law is what we call the numbra, the darkest part of a shadow. But there's also a penumbra, the context in which these things are happening. So we also focus a lot on the penumbra part of it. For example, we had a big success in trying to bring down extrajudicial executions in Manipur. We filed a case with Collins in the Supreme Court, and because of the conflict situation in Manipur in 2009, we documented about 500 cases of extrajudicial killing, or what we call fake encounters. We made an intervention in the Supreme Court in 2012 with Colin arguing on behalf of us, and we organizing the victims and making sure that all the evidence gatherings are taking place carefully. And today, we can comfortably say that in the last 5 years, not a single person, from 500, it has come down to 0. So it has drastically the situation and the possibility of people to live a peaceful life. And for us, that is the system change that we have succeeded. For the COVID, we are at the moment focusing on the right to food. Again, we use public interest litigation. We use lawyers to get a good order from the court, but we didn't stop at the court and the good order. By using that, we have made a film now with local filmmakers to create awareness among the people. We are working with the Legal Services Authority to train the paralegals so that they can file cases to the district grievance redressal officers. And now we are activating the Food Commission, which is supposed to be there in every state. Unfortunately, they have not. It has been there in Manipur from 2015. And today is the first day where they are going to pass an order. So activating this system. So it is important, this leadership, this system, and the ecosystem is extremely important to bring about the change. We have to understand the system. We have to understand the ecosystem, and we have to make strategic interventions so that we will be able to bring about that change. Let me stop here, and we'll continue with the discussion.
Thank you. That's very, very inspiring to hear your the narrative that you shared, Bablu. I'm just reminded saying that in Bangalore or in the entrepreneurial world, we talk of unicorns, of entities that have $1 billion valuation. And I keep saying that the social unicorn is an entity that can generate 1 billion smiles, right? And that's what you're saying. It's not about how much of wealth that you accumulate, but how much of smiles you spread. So I think the question that really is in front of all of us is how can we make impact at scale of a unicorn of 1 billion smiles? And maybe we'll delve deeper into that as we go along. Thank you, Will. Can I get Manoram into the conversation? Do we have...
He has some network issue. He's trying to log in.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll wait for Manoram to come in. Maybe Yashvir, you want to go next? Yashvir?
Yes, sure. Thank you,
Yes.
Madan. And firstly, thank you to Hasina. I think it's so inspiring to see a group of our Ashoka fellows come together and share. And the passion and the amount of inspiration I think this conversation has is really amazing. So I'm really inspired myself. As most of you, I think, in the audience would have heard by now that our previous speakers were Ashoka fellows. So let me very quickly also introduce Ashoka in the conversation. So Ashoka is one of the largest networks of social entrepreneurs in the world. Our founder, Mr. Bill Drayton, started the organization in 1980 to support world's leading social entrepreneurs through Ashoka Fellowship. And that's how in 1980 we selected our first Ashoka Fellow in India. Her name was Miss Gloria D'Souza. In fact, I think a lot of literature says that Bill was the first one who coined the word social entrepreneurship. And I think Bill's definition of social entrepreneurship was very much inspired from the ideology and the work of what our own Mr. Vinoba Bhave was doing under the Bhutan movement. Bill, as a young person, was spending some time in India, and he had very deep impact through the life of Gandhiji and also Vinoba Bhave and his efforts. So for us at Ashoka, a social entrepreneur is someone who from deep within is committed for the good of all. And so is then his or her work. So social entrepreneurship for us is really bringing that fundamental change in a pattern or mindset to eradicate or address an existing social problem at a systems level. Now, I think Bill gives a very beautiful, I think, analogy to explain this concept. And he says a social entrepreneur is not someone who will give you a fish, or will not be someone who will train or teach you how to fish, but is someone who will not rest until he or she revolutionizes the entire fishing industry. So I think that really kind of brings out the systems change aspect, which I think was a common thread in all the speakers who spoke before me. So I think Ashoka's main role in building the social entrepreneurship ecosystem has been by searching, selecting, and building a community of these really inspiring social entrepreneurs, not just in India, but globally. So till date, I think we have supported around 4,000 social entrepreneurs by awarding them Ashoka Fellowship and various other engagements and means, and so on and so forth. The final point I would like to say, which I think was also touched a little bit in what Hasina said, and also Nichite. So one of the common threads we see amongst most of our Ashoka Fellows is that they all started very young. So I think Hasina started her first initiative at 17, Nichite at 19, and I'm sure there is a common thread amongst most of these Ashoka Fellows. So what it really gave us an insight is that if world's leading social entrepreneurs are starting at a very young age, how would that world look like if every young person growing up has the same experience of creating change around them and being a change maker? And that's where I think what we now believe is that our social entrepreneurs not just build their own organizations, but they empower and transform the world from a place where only few lead to a place where everyone can lead. So currently, Ashoka's single-minded mission is to work with our social entrepreneurs, Ashoka Fellows, and by working with them, how do we make society reimagine as a whole, that the world will be much more beautiful, inclusive, and a world which will be sustainable if everyone grows up to be a change maker. So that's the vision, and that's the idea I think currently Ashoka is pursuing. And Ashoka Fellows are very much part of the team, and they help us in knowledge, insights, and many other things. So I'm again thrilled to be part of this conversation, and I'm so inspired that I would love to kind of share more as we go on in the conversation. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming and joining us for this conversation.
Thank you, Yashveer. And one of the first words I heard whenever I say that I'm a social entrepreneur is, "Oh, have you heard of Ashoka?" So Ashoka has become so synonymous with social enterprises and social entrepreneurs that one can't say one word without meaning the other. So kudos to all of you guys and all the Ashoka change makers, the Ashoka Fellows out there, and all the wannabe Ashoka Fellows who are on this call. It's super inspiring to listen to each one of the fellow stories itself. We have Balram back. Balram, love to bring you in now.
Good afternoon, everybody. My love and respect to all of you. It is my opportunity to learn a lot about entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship from all of you. Basically, I am in a very nascent stage in the entrepreneurship. By profession, I am a journalist. I have completed 25 years of active journalism and resigned from a satellite news channel called IIE-365 in 2014. And I started my mass communication institute in Guwahati. And I started from mass communication. I started one concept rather than business. I started a concept called Thalgiri, the ethnic hub. I basically motivated the rural people. I motivated them to produce the ethnic food items, dress items, handicraft and handlooms, all these things. And I bring all these items to Guwahati. And firstly, I started to sell it from my mass communication institute. And lately, 1.5 years back, I established a retail outlet in the heart of the city near Guwahati High Court named Tholgiri, the ethnic hub. My aim is to bring the rural producers to limelight. They have their resources, they have their expertise, but they have not their market. So I'm just linking the market and I am promoting the items through social media, Facebook, and I'm just selling it and giving them proper price of their products. So this is my aim. When I was in journalism, active journalism, then rather it was a profession. I choose it as a social responsibility. Likewise, right now also, I am entering in the entrepreneurship, not only as a business, but as a social responsibility to my village people. So you know all that in Assam, our main food is rice. But knowingly or unknowingly, the people of Assam, they are adopting the wheat-based food habits, which is, I think, it is not in a scientific way it is growing. So I am trying through my Tholgiri enterprise to promote the rice-based ethnic food products to the Guwahati consumers and city consumers or urban consumers, which is right now basically the people are forgetting to eat it. They are craving the fast food experiences. I think it is not good for health as well as good for, no, it is not good for our economic health of the locality. So I am just trying to bring these highlights that the local food for the local people, it is the concept. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Balram, for sharing your views so eloquently. As the last but not the least, and this is the most powerful voice of the youth, can I bring in Emerine, who works with Impulse Network, to share her thoughts on what you heard so far and what you think is the ideal definition of a social entrepreneur.
Thank you so much, Madan. Thank you everyone for giving me this opportunity to be here. I mean, looking at you all, it's so inspiring, and I feel like a small fry. I don't even know how much can I contribute, but definitely this is a space for me to learn and to ideate more from all the expertise here today on the webinar. Like Madan said, I work with Impulse NGO Network. I am the program manager. I scale the impact of addressing human trafficking across with various stakeholders, from law enforcement agencies to civil society organizations. Well, I did not go to school to really understand social entrepreneurship. I mean, I have no proper theoretical definition to it, but what I've realized in these 5 years while working with Impulse NGO Network is that it is about going beyond improving a current situation. It is not just about the amelioration of a current condition or just reducing the suffering of the poor. It is going beyond that, thinking about a transformative systemic change. And definitely it is not a 9-to-5 job, and it's not a cushiony job, and it does make you feel uncomfortable and the community around you uncomfortable when you try to create these transformative systemic change. So that is what social entrepreneurship is for me. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a terrific summary, Emerine. In fact, just to revisit the question that I was asked, saying what's the difference between an entrepreneur and a social entrepreneur? As I said, I kind of thought about it hard for a year and arrived at an answer that there's nothing called as a social entrepreneur. So in my worldview, there's no entrepreneur and a social entrepreneur. In my worldview, there's an entrepreneur and an anti-social entrepreneur. Because I believe, which is what everybody is echoing, that every enterprise has to be social by definition and by nature. That you got to embed the doing good part deep inside the organization. And of course, the organization has to be sustainable, has to make profits, has to make sure that the profits are being put back to work towards the doing good part, which is embedded deep into the organization. So if you look at that definition, I would argue that we should look at all enterprises through that lens only. And any other lens which does not fit becomes called as an antisocial enterprise. And that I truly believe is the evolution of any enterprise, to say, how do I operate at the intersection of doing good, feeling good, and making good money? Right? And that doing good is solving a large social problem through innovation, through whatever lens that you can apply. And so many times I keep saying that, hey, I would love to see the term in a way go away when this becomes more of a norm than an exception, right? And that's my wish, that I see that every youth, every one of us, every large, small business that starts off. And I want to share the story, just a quick minute. There's this lovely tea stall in Bangalore called Sharon Tea Stall. Some of you might have, if some of us from Bangalore would have frequented. They make about 100 varieties of chai. This guy, Daniel, who runs Sharon Tea Stall, used to be a chai fellow on a cart, and today he owns 6 units, 6 stores across Bangalore. And we interviewed him through another entity, and he said it so beautifully. First of all, he said, listen, in my tea stall, I don't sell cigarettes. And it's well-known fact that most people come to have a cigarette and then have a chai. But he says, you know what, that's not my social responsibility. I don't want to be selling cigarettes. So I stopped selling cigarettes. I'm okay to have lesser business, but at least the guys who come to me for chai and not for cigarettes. Right? And the second thing that he says so beautifully is that when we ask him what gives him the most satisfaction, he says, today 20 families, he employs about 20 people, he says 20 families depend on me. And I'm able to create life and good life for these 20 families. That gives me most joy. He does not talk about, I sell so many thousands of chai in a month, I make so much of profits. So in my view, Daniel is no different from a social entrepreneur, because he is married the cause of a larger good, which could be his employees, and the larger good of the population, to say, I will give them great chai, but I will not sell cigarettes to them, is a stance that he's taken as an entrepreneur, right? So one doesn't have to look too far and look too hard to find social entrepreneurs. We'll find them everywhere around us. We just need to look. So I would also argue that being a social entrepreneur is first a mindset and then a skill set. How can we start thinking like entrepreneurs? How can we start thinking like social entrepreneurs in everything we do? And we can then infuse the world with that thought, which becomes our action of social enterprises itself, right? So just to sum up the conversations, I think it was a very rich set of conversations. What I want to do, we have another 40 minutes. I would request the audience to start sending in some questions. But in the meanwhile, I have a few questions for the panel. We can go in no particular order. What we will do is I will keep a timeout of around 10 to 12 minutes for every question, so that at the end of 12 minutes, I'll say, hey, let's move on to the next question. Especially, so the first question that we have is, in times like this, when the world is reeling, India is reeling under COVID, and COVID is not just a health scare, but an economic scare as well, that it's really put a lot of businesses, a lot of economic engines out of action. So in times like this, when there is gloom and doom all over the place, what are the opportunities that we see? What are the silver linings in this dark cloud? What is it that we as social entrepreneurs can say, aha, that's an opportunity that we can go after and use that to affect a larger change? I'd love to get about 10 to 12 minutes of this conversation from anybody who wants to jump in. Yeah, Nichute, you want to start? Yeah.
Yeah. Can I come in?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So when lockdown was enforced, one of the first things as a social entrepreneur we did was to provide relief. And then we found out that because the market system, market network was disrupted, farmers couldn't sell their produce, and therefore cash income to farmer became zero. So what we did was we started linking up farm producers from the villages to markets. So we immediately saw that the lockdown, of course, needed to be treated with relief, but it created opportunities for an institute like us to market farmers' producers. Today, we know that after the lockdown, there is immense opportunities opening up in the agri-business sectors. So to me, the COVID-19 is not just a crisis. It's actually showing us immense opportunities which we missed earlier. So for the amount of opportunities that is going to open up and that is opening up will be different from the opportunities that we have seen before. In fact, by the end of April, CMIE has been saying that out of every 4 Indians employed, 1 person was out of job. And today the unemployment is going towards about 27% unemployed rate in India. But I want to reiterate that, like the Chinese said, Wiji, which is called crisis, it brings both danger but a chance of opportunity. So for me, I see that a number of opportunities are opening up. A number of opportunities will keep on coming to our way. So I do not see gloom, but I see a lot of new things happening for the society.
Wonderful. Spoken like a true entrepreneur, every problem is an opportunity in disguise. Right? So how do you identify opportunities from the problems that we have? And you're saying it's all around us. Bablu, I see you unmuting. So
yes, I just want to elaborate a little bit. Sorry. I want to elaborate a little bit on the present initiative. Thanks for the initiative. I mean, the seat is exactly the same. In the midst of the crisis, one is the danger, but there's always an element of opportunity that needs to be explored and developed upon. I was telling you, now we are focusing a lot on this food issue because COVID affects some people, but the lockdown affects everyone. And because people are not able to step out of their house because of all this lockdown and the curfew, people are finding it very, very difficult, particularly the poorer sections are finding it very difficult to get their ends met. So this is an opportunity that we started looking in. Of course, the government have made this grand announcement, the Prime Minister's Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, and 5 kilo each for all the NAPSFA card holders, National Food Security Act. But when it actually operationalized I'm sure this is also experienced in many other northeastern states, perhaps many in other parts as well. I mean, the economy in the Northeast has been pretty much a very agrarian and isolated economy. And the need for PDS system was not very strongly felt. So historically, even though large number of food grains keep coming into this region, these are being siphoned off by a few politicians, a few bureaucrats, and the merchant community. In Arunachal Pradesh, this became a big issue. And we have been eyeing on this for a very long time of taking an initiative. So COVID was the most opportune kind of a moment for us to take this up. And we have filed a public interest litigation in the High Court showing how many of the people who were supposed to get this food never got this food. So we compiled a list of it, presented to the High Court, and the High Court gave a very good kind of directives, 17 directives specifically on the government on how to ensure that the food is being taken out by the authorized people, how the fair price shops are being run, and to ensure that everything is uploaded in the website to maintain transparency. This should have been done in 2013 when the act was originally passed, but it has been delayed. And now because of this crisis, the need for this PDS system is so stark. I mean, it means starvation and having food in your plate. This is an opportunity that we have pushed very hard. And local artists now have made a film out of this, basically telling through a small episode, what are the entitlements of the people, what you can do if you are not giving this, what are the mechanisms which are available. These are all there in paper, but it was never activated. So this is an opportunity for us now to activate it in terms of spreading awareness at the ground level, to opening up grievance redressals in the subdivisional level and at the district level, and to activate a food commission, which was there since 2015, but have not taken a single case. So we are pushing it to open up with 2 cases to begin with. So this is an opportunity for us to streamline kind of a pipe which has been clogged for a long time. This is an opportunity for us to make sure that the water flows a little more, persistently and this thing. So, I mean, such are the opportunities. I mean, maybe ours is a little more legal oriented, right oriented thing. So I don't know how much it fits into thing, but this is an opportunity to awake the people and to streamline the systems which have not been functioning. So we also thought that this was a golden opportunity because it was a crisis, because we have complete support from the society to push this agenda now.
Sure. Thank you, Bablu. I think that's a very pertinent point about policy windows opening up in times like this, and how do you ensure that we're able to get the right policies drafted in. Yashvi, you wanted to come in?
Yes, thank you, Madan. No, so I think because we have this unique opportunity to look at many social entrepreneurs and work with them. So one is, of course, the situation is very unfortunate, where I think both lives and livelihoods are at danger. But on the opportunity side, I think one of the things which we are also witnessing is that the situation is also letting some of these social entrepreneurs to start thinking and collaborating. So I think a couple of weeks back, me and my team was speaking to the social entrepreneurs. Again, they were not working earlier in Northeast, but now I think they were looking at how can they help some of the, I think, farmers and agricultural sector in the Northeast. And two of these entrepreneurs came together. They had different models, different strengths, but they made a hybrid model where I think one's work in fishery and one's work in agriculture can come together, so that both food security and livelihoods for local farmers at a local level could be restored. So I think one of the patterns which also is emerging is, I think any challenge kind of disturbs the existing dynamics of the trade. So what it also is doing is, COVID also is now pushing people to think beyond what they were doing, and that requires, I think, collaborating on different strengths. Different people are bringing different approaches. So I think this is also a time where maybe new approaches, new business models, new social entrepreneurial models will emerge. And I think that's a great sign that finally we'll also see some collaborations and people and models coming together to work and solve some of these problems.
Sure, absolutely makes sense, Yashvi. Let me, before we go in deeper into this, let me add another question that's come from Priyal. What are some of the things that social entrepreneurs should be mindful of as a plan and prepare for the post-COVID world? So I would open up this question as well to the panel, who wants to come in, and maybe add this to the other question as well. Add your thoughts to the other question also. Hasina, you want to come in here?
I think, I mean, coming from the journey, like 2006, when I was selected as an Ashoka Fellow, I was already in the journey of social entrepreneurship, which I didn't realize that I was a social entrepreneur till Ashoka gave me the shape and the thinking of what I was doing. Having said that, I mean, bringing system change in addressing human trafficking through an innovation, which is the impulse model, over the last 18 years, has seen us that it's so important to bring collective leadership, collective partnership, when we are talking about social entrepreneurship in the new scenario, because it's not one single entrepreneur or one single social entrepreneur that can make change happen. Now, the more we can take young people to also become change maker to an existing innovation, where solutions are collective, where leadership is collective, then we see larger impact. And I know that a lot of people sometimes ask that, well, you have a hybrid model, which is Impulse Social Enterprises. What is a hybrid model all about? Yes, we are making profit out of the hybrid model, but the profit is reinvested back for social impact, where the meaning of how we take along those women that we are working with in around 7,000 across the Northeast, in seeing that preventing of unsafe migration is an important necessity if we have a choice to economic. And that's what the social enterprise was born. Now, if we're looking at COVID situation, now, because all these women entrepreneurs who are artisans, who are in the villages, because they are back home, they're within their own ecosystem, they are within their own, what we call it, biodiversity, they are able to ensure that food security was available. The add-on, where indigenous skill is being promoted through livelihood, is an economic which is supporting them even during lockdown and also post-lockdown. But innovation cannot be done by just one social entrepreneur. I might have been a social entrepreneur for all this while, but the team that come along in an institution which is led by a social entrepreneur has to have a collective mindset. We're doing good as the core, fine-tuning the doing good and believing in that doing good and believing that change is collective becomes a necessity. Now, if you're looking at COVID situation, I know that relief has become the most important part when it comes to reaching out to the community. But I think what Bablu has also mentioned, bringing the legal norms in that perspective, is an important element of a social entrepreneur, because relief cannot just be done by, individual, well-meaning individual or NGO for that matter, but it also has to be a human right approach. So I think the whole value principle about during the COVID, post the COVID, is how do we re-innovate? How do we actually look at scaling deeper and also looking at redefining and rebucking the myth, of post-COVID and how social entrepreneur can work together towards that. So that's my take. I mean, based on the experiences and also bringing women along. I know in the whole space of social entrepreneurship, even as a Ashoka Fellow worldwide, we have been talking more about having young women coming on board. They could multiply innovation and collectively do. And I think that's how the core of Ashoka, I mean, all of you sitting at Ashoka Fellow, Ashoka head office or in India or in many countries, are social entrepreneur who are also collectively working towards with other social entrepreneur in making that change happen.
Thank you. I think clearly you're highlighting that the post-COVID world has to be far, far more collaborative than what it was before. And it's also shown the fault lines of how we've not been that way. And maybe I would love to get in anybody else, call in Dr. Shiparna to share your thoughts on this.
I would just like to add to what Hasina has said. The post-COVID world needs to have more and more of social entrepreneurs. And I think the environment is also like, people are now ready with a mindset to collaborate, because they have been, entrepreneurs have been really helpless at all levels, right from the grassroots level to every level. So there is a need. But what I would like to, flag here is in Northeast, many people could be actually working as social entrepreneurs, but that, that awareness is not there. The awareness is not there as to, and even the reinforcement is also required for people who are actually doing a lot of social good as entrepreneurs. So, maybe we need to, in this region, we need to create more awareness about who a social entrepreneur is. So that validation becomes extremely important. Just to elaborate on what I have said, the reason why I thought that Manoram Gogoi should be here is that while if you look at, what he has done in the last few years is phenomenal. But, I think the lives that he has impacted, it's like, it's only, but then he has never thought, maybe he has thought about him as a social, but that's a social reason why he has gone into it. But again, documenting what he has done, because he or she becomes a role model for a region like ours, where we have more of social entrepreneurs coming in. So there is a need for that sort of a support system and ecosystem for social entrepreneurs. Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely makes sense. Maybe on that cue, Manoram, you want to add anything to what Dr. Sriparna talked about?
Yes, actually, I told my style of working that firstly, after leaving my job, my job, I started to visit the villages of Assam and across the state. I did more than 50 small meetings, and as well as public meeting also, some seminars, workshop on the village resources and how to modify it, how to develop it, how to bring it to the market, and how to value add it. And I just reached the grassroots level people, and I motivated them. And after working 2.5 years with the grassroots level, the village people, I established my outlet, and I bring all the products from them. And right now, I am looking for a rice-based food laboratory in Guwahati, and I requesting the government and non-government organization to help me in setting a food-based rice-based food laboratory here in Guwahati. It is very essential for me for the quality products and the preservation. Also, the packaging should be improved. They are village people with no education, half education, but they have resources, they have expertise with them. So this can be a model to reach the big market from the rural area, remote area of across the state. So some young people are coming forward. They are helping me in this all segments. They are helping me, and I till the date, directly or indirectly, 1,000 people are involving with me in this 1.5 year my project. And right now, I think more than 1,000, 2,000 people are coming, but we have to give them the market. To give them the market, the quality of the products should be improved. The packaging should be improved. So I am doing for this type of work right now. I am concentrating how to improve the quality of these products, village products, and right now I can say we are going to set up an example how to make a big way these village products. Modernly.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you. I think, like the focus that you're talking about, the product and the product quality, and therefore using it as a pull for consumers to come and, access those products. Let me go over to the other side and see if I can get Colin's perspective on the challenges that you see in the post-COVID world, or how would there be any changes in the way that one should be thinking? If you can, again, unmute yourself, Colin. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah, I was enjoying listening to everybody speaking of their work, catching up with some of the things I knew a long time ago, and now I'm catching up with their work today. But I want to go on a slightly different track. The post-COVID world is a desperate world. Nothing that you do will feed the bellies of people. Nothing that you do will improve their education. People are so desperate. I don't think India has ever had a situation where the people of India are as destitute and desperate as they are today. In a situation like this, we have to look a little wider beyond the boundaries of the work that we do. And we have to ask ourselves, can India survive really? It's not COVID that killed people at all. A lesson that we learned from COVID is that the virus didn't kill us. It's the absence of a social support system that killed people. Right? Your hospitals didn't allow you to come inside. You had heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, cardiac arrest, and the hospitals turned us away. Right? It's not COVID that killed people. It's the closure of the hospitals that killed us. It's not COVID that killed us. It's the absence of food that killed us. We have 70 million tons of grain in our granaries, and that grain didn't reach a person. You saw the pictures of people walking home, eating once in 2 days, having 20 rupees in their pockets. So make no mistake about that. It's not the virus. The virus will come, we'll generate immunity, many will die inevitably, and it will go on. But it's the fact that India is a deeply unjust country where politicians don't care, and the people who govern the country don't care, that kills us, and will kill us again, and will kill us again. So then what do? We must make that transition from the micro to the macro. We must make the transition from the entrepreneur to the activist. We must make that very important step from the social entrepreneur to the social activist. Not leave behind the social entrepreneur, because that is what keeps us alive, that keeps our communities going, that gives us hope where there is no hope anywhere else. But if we don't make a transition from the entrepreneur to the activist, social entrepreneur to the social activist, the world will continue becoming worse and worse and worse. And we'll be left behind at a level, they'll leave us. People who govern will leave us behind and say, all right, carry on. So even I, as a lawyer, I realize that if I just do my legal practice, which is very important, I can't survive unless I do my legal practice. But I realize that I have to go from my legal practice to a kind of a network which will do legal combat with the state. I converted myself from a lawyer to a lawyer activist. And the core idea is, the core theme is combat. Within your areas, whether it's rice, whether it's craft, whether it's education, food, whatever it is, we must do combat. And by combat, I mean you must engage in the larger picture. Why is it that our PDA shops are closed? Why is it that when the minister, you can go to courts, you can do other things as well, but we must make that transition to combat, to fight against the state.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a very, very powerful call to action. Yeah, no, I think there's a lot in what you're saying that we need to reflect on and start acting on. Let me bring in Emery.
Hi.
What do you see, Emery, from where you look at the world from?
So I don't know, maybe I'm just going to be a little critical as to what I'm seeing right now. And so a lot of social entrepreneurs and different organizations are just doing a lot of relief work right now. Everybody is doing relief work. amazing, great. And people are hungry. But then the problem is, are we, by doing this relief work, are we really giving them the dignity that they deserve? Why are we not going beyond that and thinking of something sustainable to help the hungry and the poor who are a part, who are a part of this entire relief work? What are we doing as social entrepreneurs? But why are we not coming together and do something beyond looking at the present situation right now? So yeah, that's what my problem, I mean, what I see is happening right now. And where is this empathy? We need to create, we need to have a higher level of empathy to go beyond feeding the poor and thinking of creating a better systemic change, of creating a sustainable ecosystem. And on top of that, I don't even know whether we will be having a post COVID-19 era, or are we going to live in COVID-19 for a few more years? So we have to ideate and innovate certain other things, and look at situation from different and various lenses. That's all.
Very, very well put, Emily. I think how do we look beyond what is the need today, and how do we really reset so that we don't get stuck back in this symptom all over again. We have 15 minutes left, and here is kind of a rapid fire that we can do with all the panelists. And there are a lot, actually, we have a few questions from the youth, and actually it's not an if. When a youth asks any one of us, why should I be a social entrepreneur? There are lots of challenges. We are talking of combat. We are talking of working in very difficult terrains. We are talking of no money or less money. What is our answer? So if you were to give a 1-minute pitch to why should you be a social entrepreneur to a young person, what would it be? Can we have that as the closing thoughts from all of you in any particular order? I know, Nichute, you've been active on the chat, but it'll be lovely to hear your thoughts verbalized.
Yeah, thank you. Frank Buchman, the founder of moral rearmament in the 20th century, he said, "As I am, so is my nation." If we want to see the change in the world, if we want to see the change in society, like Gandhiji said, we must become the change. And so if a young person wants to see that change in society, we have no time to blame the government. I know government needs to change, but more importantly, I need to change. And so the change begins with me, and begins now. And that's why you need to be a social entrepreneur. I want to encourage people to be an entrepreneur, because there is a world of difference for somebody who is looking for a job and somebody who is providing jobs. The mentality is totally different. And so the social entrepreneur is where we begin to solve many issues that we feel very strongly about.
Okay, terrific pitch. Thank you. Who would want to go next?
Yeah, I go.
Yes, Dr. Shipard.
I think what I would say why you need to be a social entrepreneur is because you get a purpose. The purpose why I want to be an entrepreneur. We always say unless we get a passion, there is a purpose behind why. Purpose cannot be money. Money, how long will it motivate me? So along with money, definitely, because we have to build up sustainable models. But along with money, when I'm also changing people's life, that I think is getting a lot of satisfaction. So purpose is to do social good. At the same time, money is going to come in as a effort that you're putting in. Definitely money will be. Money cannot be an objective, and that alone, if it motivates you, you cannot do social good. So I think within us, all of us, we always have that somewhere or the other, that desire to give back is always there. So, hitting on that is important, and I think that is where.
Terrific. Okay.
Can I go next?
Yeah, Emily.
Okay, so what I feel like, why should one be a social entrepreneur is, I think they need to have these certain parameters in their head. If you have a certain aspiration that that does not only solve your personal problem but the community's problem, and if you're a mad person, you should definitely be a social entrepreneur. That's what I feel.
That's a
Thank you.
good definition, right? Okay. Who next? Manoram, I see you.
Business is not, entrepreneurship is not only for you, it is for others also. So we have to follow these norms, and by knowingly or unknowingly, I am getting involved in a social entrepreneurship. This is the first time I learned a lot from you all people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yashweer?
Yes. So my advice to the young would be, I think, sometimes when we say, oh, you need to be a social entrepreneur, I think it could be very or I think limiting. But what would I recommend? It really request every young person to start thinking of becoming a change maker. And which is very simple, that you find a problem and there are so many problems around us, try to solve it, fix it. It could be an entrepreneurial model, it could be activism, it could be even a business model, right? Around building some sort of technology intervention and so on and so forth. So I think two reasons. One, of course, I think some of speakers have said that if you want to become a change maker or a social entrepreneur, it's really satisfying, it gives meaning to what you are doing. And the second major advice would also be that earlier, I think a lot of times these decisions will be guided by the parents, where they would say this would work, this would not work. And what we are seeing in, or what we are experiencing in this world, is that the world is changing at such a fast pace. Even most of these adults are also overwhelmed. They do not know what to advise. And this is a right time, right opportune moment where these young people can demonstrate that they can create livelihoods for not just themselves, for others, for community members, and they can also have a very meaningful life which is driven by serving and creating value for the society. So I think that's a great path to walk in, and I think there is no better moment than now to start that journey.
Terrific. I know you will be getting asked this question almost on a daily basis by the young people that you work with. Should we get in Bablu?
Sure, Madan. Yeah, to me, I think I address it at the very first. You want to be rich, make money. If you want to be great, contribute to the change. Well, also it's a highly satisfying experience to see that you could actually bring about some positive benefit to the society, and there's a lot of love and respect that you get in return, which money will never be able to buy. So to be a social entrepreneur is also to buy your happiness in a way, a fulfilling life, but also to be able to steer the world in the direction that you think is right and fair is an extremely powerful, satisfying experience. Test it out, and you will never regret it. That's all.
Thank you. Colin, do you want to come in? Then I'll get to Hasina. I think Colin seems to have dropped off, I suppose. Okay, maybe we'll bring in Colin back once he comes back online. Hasina, your thoughts, and if there's any other specific call out you want to do on the conversations that we've had as closing comments as well. And if you can unmute as well, Hasina.
Madan, I would like to weave all our Ashoka Fellow and also non-Ashoka Fellow on the panel today, I think there's one focus. Empathy is very important to actually, and your passion. Empathy and passion has to go hand in hand, that actually take a social entrepreneur journey forward. Yes, in a world like today, I mean, a social entrepreneur has also, like what Colin mentioned, that we need to be activists. Yes, activism is an important element where the legal framework is an important tool that make action comes true, where collective action comes true. I mean, I'll just, close by saying this, that being a social entrepreneur for so long, an organization that believe in collaborative leadership and partnership, we have not stepped back when it comes to addressing like the coal mining in Meghalaya. When we realized that there is a violation happening, we took the tool of a legal support system. So it has to be a combination of both. But it has to be a thought process that when you have to work things together, it cannot be a competition. It's time post-COVID that social entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs come together and collectively look at what sustainable action, what human right value and principle can actually brought together in making change and impact. I totally agree that you need to be sustainable in terms of financial. Business has to be financially sustainable. But money cannot buy everything, because at the end of the day, money can also violate a lot of human rights. So it's a very important critical thought that one has to look. But nevertheless, we are seeing a lot of young people out there having strong opinions, participating in social change. If we can actually bring them together, and take them into this journey together, I think we will be multiplying the impact in the region in the years to come.
Beautiful. Very, very well summarized, Hasina. And I think, we are down to the last few minutes, and I'm amazed at how fast time flies when we're having a wonderful conversation. And just 1.5 hours seems to have just gone off in a second. I think it's been a fascinating set of conversations. I'm sure each of us will find ways of connecting with everybody else to figure out how to take it forward. I want to kind of end this with 2 key thoughts that I have, which kind of summarizes, right? Especially, I'll leave you with a few stories. Story 1 was about a man walking along the road and seeing a person, working, a carpenter, working on the wood. And he says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Hey, I'm building, I'm just doing my job. I'm supposed here to cut wood, and I'm cutting wood." He walks a few meters down the road and sees another man doing exactly the same thing. And he says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm part of building a house. I'm cutting the wood to build a house." And another 100 meters or so, he spots another person doing exactly the same thing and asks him, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I am a part of a team that's constructing the most wonderful house in this entire world." So 3 people doing the same thing, but as a leader, as a social entrepreneur, how can we have the perspective number 3 for everything that we do, that it's just not for ourselves, but it is for ourselves and for doing a good to the world around us. And I think that's where true leadership comes in from, right? The other thing that's always inspired me is what apparently when someone asked Edmund Hillary, "Why do you want to climb the Mount Everest?" His answer was, "It is there. I just want to do it because it's just there." Right? So when a lot of people ask me, "Why are you trying to solve such tough problems?" My answer is simple: because it's there. It needs to be solved. Right? So how do we then start doing just what is necessary? Then we start doing what's possible. And suddenly all of us are doing the impossible. And that is the journey of a social entrepreneur. Right? So with that, I want to kind of call this to a close. It's exactly 3:30. I was wondering how are we going to manage 9 people with loads of experiences to kind of end on time, but miracles do happen. I think each one of you have been phenomenally collaborative, sharing, building on each other's points. And this has been one hell of a masterclass in social entrepreneurship. Thank you so much, Hasina, Shruti from Ashoka, Dr. Sharma from IIE for pulling us in. Game is already working in Meghalaya. We are looking to do a lot of work in the Northeast, so look forward to collaborating with each one of you to figure out how can we create a much richer, empathetic society that kind of creates jobs for everybody and takes away joblessness from the face of our nation. Thank you so much. I'll hand it back to Dr. Sharma for any closing.
Thank you, Madan. A wonderful moderation. Kept us all engrossed,
Thank you.
looking at the TV screen or the computer screen. Fantastic. And I think we had really, I would call a nuanced approach and perspective from a host range of people, starting with Colin, who has, like he said, moved to social activism from being an entrepreneur to an entrepreneur like Manoram, who has got into this entrepreneurship by accident, then actually by design. So yes, it was a fantastic, I think, a meeting of minds, if I may call it. I take Hasina's point to end up this meeting, that I think in COVID times, collaboration is the only way forward. We need to collaborate together. We need to bring people of the similar thoughts together. More so for the regions like Northeast, which are totally, a little away from the mainland. And I think this is one such initiative which we have started. I would like to thank Hasina. I would like to tell especially thanks to the Ashoka Foundation for being here, Yasvi especially for being here and bringing in the group of entrepreneurs, or I would say the first batches of entrepreneurs or social entrepreneurs in the country, the Ashoka Fellows. And of course, my team here in NERES, who has been behind doing this entire work in the background. Dr. Shipana is leading that. And of course, the entire team which has been there. So thanks to everyone for being here, and hope we meet again and try to make a meaningful differences in the lives of the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.